So 3 people right now. Is it a party? I don't know. So sorry, we have the webcam here and then my screen is here. So I do want to keep looking at the screen. So my plan was to talk a little bit about the land, what it looks like, what we have on here, and then what the plan is for the winter and for the long-term future. So I think I'll just start talking, and then if more people show up, that's good. And otherwise, I think I'll just put this stream onto Patreon so people can see it. So we did have a map on paper of the land, but of course I can't find it anymore. Oh yes, hi. I'll speak in English so that I can actually upload it, and it's not just Dutch people party. But that's good. And we have a digital one, so I think I'll put it with the Patron post. But basically, our land is just a long rectangular shape, and with a little bit of a bite out of it, which here in Portugal as well for a long time, as was in Holland, it was customary to kind of divide up your land and give it to all your children. So which now means that you have a lot of very tiny pieces of land, and that little bite out of our land is actually 2 pieces. They're very small. The people don't use it anymore. We know they live in the village, and in the future we'll buy it because it's it's a couple nice pieces of grass. And then so it's basically like this, and then with a little bite, and this like most lean little bit is where the garden is and where the little bottom field with the chickens is. And for now we've only cleaned about half. Altogether the land is a little bit over 3 hectares, but because it's 2 slopes as well, in actual square meters it's a little bit more. And the olive field is one slope. It goes down, it's the garden and the chickens, and then we go up the other side and about a couple meters up where the yurt is and the kitchen. Sorry, I get a very dry throat. So we still have a long way to go. The rest of the hillside is very steep, where we have to clean it more. It has a lot of oak trees, cork oak and holm oak, but also a lot of bushes that need to go. And then on top we have a little bit more of a plateau, which has another olive field as well, with maybe 10-15 more olive trees, but olive trees that are a lot thicker and therefore older than the ones that we have in our big field. And they kind of survived the neglect a lot better. So we have cleaned that olive field, just not the rest of the hillside. And I think we can actually harvest on top there as well. And so for the future, the idea is, but we have to see, is that we can build a house on top of the hill. But we will have to see if there's actually a good spot to do that. And we have to go through a whole paperwork mill probably of getting the right what's it called, licensing and all that stuff. And it can be done. We're not officially an urban plot, but there are ways to actually make it so that you're allowed to live there, or at least build a structure and then you just live there. So that's a little bit about the land. I of course show a lot in the videos, but you can't really see it all or show it all. Maybe we'll do some more in the future of just showing some overview shots. But especially how steep the slope is very hard to catch on camera. How long are we planning to live in the yurt? That's a good question. So it really depends on the house. I think we can start building next winter. At least that's the plan that I have in my head. And because we want to do natural building, we're thinking about an earth bag house because they have very good thermal mass, and they take a long time to build. And by then we'll have a baby again. So who knows how long that will take, but I think we'll prepare it for living here 5 years at least. But yeah, we'll have to see. I really like the space. We're getting some more furniture. I keep not going on to IKEA when I have to, just to get a new bed for Puck and all that stuff. But it's a good space, and I think with 2 children it's very doable. So if we ever have another one coming, then we'll have to make a push for a house. But I don't think we'll do that soon because I don't actually enjoy being pregnant. So that's a whole nother story. So probably another 3, 4, maybe even 5 years. And our yurt is 6.5 meters in diameter, so it's not very small. And because we have the kitchen outside, which we'll have to see how that goes in winter, but it gives us a very nice living space. I'll do a video on the yurt once I have all the new furniture. Was there anything else that you wanted to know about our plans for the land, or just in general? Can I actually see who else is in here? Oh, no. Okay. That's weird. It says 3 people, but maybe the other person is on Patreon. So if you come over to YouTube, you can actually comment in the chat box there, and it's much easier. Oh. I had thought seeing the response on the post that there would be more people here, so that there would be more questions, but so on Patreon, you can click on the YouTube icon, and then it says go to YouTube. And because this is a private, an unlisted stream, you can't really actually see it through my regular YouTube page, just so that I can keep it just for patrons. Do you know where you are going to make a spot for the baby? That's a logistical issue. So when we had Book, when we just had her, we lived in an apartment in Haarlem, and we did have a little cot for her there. But the reality for me was that I just had her in bed the whole time, because I was doing breastfeeding and trying to sleep, and trying to combine those two things is very hard. So our solution was to just have her in the bed. And then as we moved into the camper, she was in the bed with us. And for a little while, we did a house sit, and she was in her own bed then. But then we moved back into the camper, and it was just easier because she was teething at the time to. Oh, that's fine. To have her next to me in the bed. So I did breastfeed her for quite a while. I think 22 months or something. Way too long. I'm not going to do that with the new baby. The aim is a year, and that's it. But so just through circumstances, she's still in the bed with us now, which is not ideal. So we're going to get her a new bed and make a little her own corner. And then I think we'll try to have a cot for the new baby, and we can just have it next to the bed. But if they're not a good sleeper, then I'm just lazy and I take them into bed with us. We have enough room, so it's not such a big deal to us. Martin is not the biggest fan, but I'm doing the breastfeeding, so he can't really complain. So yeah, and then once they get bigger and we're done through all that, I think we can maybe get 2 bunk beds if we're still in the yurt. But it's all, I think we'll just have to see this space as a little bit fluctuating, and just see what kind of works with the furniture that we have and that we can find. And then in the house, I think we'll just do a bedroom for all the children. Whether it's 2 or 3, I think it's good that they just sleep together. Or it's not the torture some people make it out to be. And then once they're teenagers, we have so much land that we can just give them their own caravan, and they can stay in there. We have friends who do that, and it's ideal. So there is new people coming in. Sorry, that was not correct English. From what I can see in the numbers, but I'm not sure if they're on YouTube or on Patreon. So if you are on Patreon, you can go to the YouTube stream. If you click on the YouTube icon, and then you can actually ask me questions. Hey, Tana, you made it. Oh, so 2 more questions. Great. So yeah, sorry, to end my sentence, if you are on Patreon, you can click on the YouTube icon, and then you can because it's a private stream, you can come onto the stream on YouTube and actually ask me questions in the live chat. So Tana asks, can you tell us more about the village that you live near? So for privacy reasons, I will obviously not name the villages, but we are right in between 2 villages. They're about 15-20 minutes from Castelo Branco. So we're in the Castelo Branco district, and we love it here. And they're very small villages. One of them, of which we are officially part, we're right on the border, and we can see her from our land. And they have a little shop, and a lady who makes cheese, and that's it. It kind of shrunk down the last couple decades to a couple hundred people, and most of the people who live there are quite old. So I think over the next 10 to 15 years, we're gonna lose most of the village. It's mostly all abandoned already. And what's kind of happening right now is that lots of foreign young people like us, but also older people who are just done with a life in other places, they're kind of moving into the farms outside of the village, and as new people coming in every couple months, I think people are really eager to get out, and this is a good place to buy land and have some more freedom. And it's still affordable for not so wealthy people to actually buy here. So that's the one village, and then the other village that has pretty much all the amenities that we need. So they have one or two cafes, a supermarket, they have a pharmacy and a school there. So in theory, we could actually walk Puck to school next year. But there's also a school bus who goes on the main road here, so we can just walk her there, and they can pick her up there. So yeah, even here in the close vicinity, in walking distance, we pretty much have everything we need. But for the bigger shops, we usually go to Castello Branco because it's close by enough that we can go once a week or more, but not. We prefer not to go that much. Yeah, I think yeah, it's slowly becoming that, and it's so many people from different walks of life. It's older people who want to like retire or pre-retire, want to work less, but it's also a lot of younger people, like the friends that I showed in the video, who just want to not work for a boss, but want to be farmers and live in a more sustainable way. So you get what you get. We don't get along with everyone, but we're fortunate enough that we have some people that we really like who are close by. So that's good. Oh yeah, in the video you mentioned making the veggie garden bigger. Any specific plans or just more food? So we have a couple different ideas, and we'll have to see how much we can actually make work. But one thing that we wanted to do, because we kind of had a scheduling nightmare with the potatoes this year, we want to do a specific potato field. And now that we know how much we can actually get from a particular size field, we can kind of try to grow more of our own potatoes. We love potatoes, and I want to have some different varieties as well. So we want to, excuse me, we want to do a good chunk of the garden just potatoes. What kind of potatoes do you grow? This year we just did Desiree potatoes, which is just a regular white potato. But I also want to try some purple potatoes and just different varieties and see what really works well in the soil here. Hey Puck, wat heb je gedaan? Oh, moet je even papa roepen, ja? Sorry, the toddler is talking to me from the doorway. Roep papa maar even. So we want to try a couple different varieties, and they work well enough in the soil that we have. And then I was thinking of also doing sweet potatoes, but from the research that I did last year, it seems that you need very loose soil, and at the moment we have very clayish soil. So I didn't even want to bother. But I do want to maybe do a trial of that next year as well, because here you can only buy, or usually you can, it's more common to buy the white sweet potatoes, and I'm more of a fan of the orange and the purple. So yeah, we want to do some different varieties and just see what works. Um, Although there's your able to find choice. I mean, it's a good potato. Any potato is good. And then we want to do maybe 2 or 3 more beds as well. So we're gonna have the whole bottom terrace. Now we kind of have it, the fence kind of fenced off partly. So we're gonna just fence the whole terrace so that the chickens don't come in, hopefully. And then yeah, we're gonna just do more rows, and then already start the trenching system from the beginning, because the trial worked really well for us. And then yeah, kind of scale up and do more corn, do more tomatoes. Hopefully I won't be pregnant then again and actually eat this. But then yeah, we can hopefully also preserve a little bit more, because the plan is to also do a root cellar this winter, which should be much easier now that we have the digger, and then we can actually have a place to store all the food next winter. So we're gonna do more canning and fermenting and yeah, all sorts of things. So much bigger, and then we can hopefully get a little bit closer to self-sufficiency when it comes to vegetables and potatoes. But it's a 5-year plan, I think, probably, and I don't know if you can ever be fully self-sufficient, but it's a trial and error, and we'll see. Do you have a list of lessons learned for these past 2 years of growing? Yeah, so this was actually our first summer growing here. So we had a tiny garden last year, but because we started it very late, the soil was just too hard, and we didn't have a rototiller. So that was a complete failure. We had some mustard leaves and some radishes. So we worked much harder on it this year. And what did I learn this year? Gardening is a lot of work, and with just to do hand watering for a bigger garden is not realistic, and the heat is such a big challenge. So I know people who water twice a day because they do hand watering, but because we don't want to do the investment of drip irrigation yet, because I don't really like plastic that much. We experimented with the trench and we liked it, and I think it will work well for other things as well. So with tomatoes and stuff, and then we can kind of figure out if it's a good way to water the whole garden. Oh, sorry. So I think the biggest lesson was it's a lot of work. The soil needs many more nutrients. So the place where we're gardening right now, it was a garden, but 30-40 years ago. So it's not the soil over the last couple decades kind of depleted. And you can also see that from the things that were growing there. They're things that grow well in poor soil. So adding much more nutrients to the soil is very important. and just important in general. I mean, if I look at my friends, the one that does the most composting has the best vegetables. They look the best, and they need quite a lot of water, or they take quite a lot of water. But um, yeah, just building the soil. That's the main lesson, I think. And then you could pretty much grow anything here. You just have to look at when. So in Holland, you would usually, I think, grow cabbages in the summer. Here, I think that's not a great idea. You can probably do that in winter. We're doing that in winter. So kind of shifting what your expectations are. Oh, Marta's walking in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It works. Okay.
It works.
Just checking.
I'm no longer talking to myself. Can you bring me some more to drink? Oh yeah. Well, what kind of animals do you think you might add to the property to help build the soil? So once I'm back on my feet, this is one of the things that I wanted to make a video about. I think as I'm learning more about farming and especially about regenerative agriculture, which is something I also discussed in the video that I made for Rob Greenfield. Doing an agroforestry type system, thank you, is really the way to go. So especially on the hillside where we have the cork oak and the holm oak, it's important to us to also build the soil there after we've cleaned it, and we'll do agroforestry silvopasture type system there, which means that you have animals grazing amongst the trees, and then in between there we can plant some other trees as well, some what's the word, chestnuts and more native trees to Portugal, so not pine trees and eucalyptus, because we hate them. They're not good for the soil. So when it comes to the type of animals, we're kind of still debating, because sheep and goats are quite a handful. They're a lot of work, and especially if you do the rotational grazing, it can be a lot of work. So that's why we're not starting on it now, because we have other things to do. So Maarten's dream is to actually get 2 donkeys. There's this beautiful Portuguese heritage breed. I forget the name, but it's this beautiful brown donkey. And donkeys actually eat a lot of things as well. And from what we've heard, they will leave your trees alone. So it's a good animal to have maybe in the olive field. And our friend, he had a donkey staying with him for a couple weeks from his neighbor, and he says the place where the donkey was at the time is now the most luscious place. Like, everything grows there, it's beautiful. In the winter it's nice and green. So I think from what I've heard, donkey manure is very good for the soil. So yeah, maybe donkeys, but that, well, we obviously have to get some fencing up as well. We have many things that we want to do this winter, so we need to work on the garden. Martin needs to clean more. We want to do a root cellar. We want to do more fencing. We'll have to see how realistic that is. But those are all things that you can better do in the winter than in the summer. So we'll see. So donkeys is probably the next animal that we'll get. And then maybe for the other hillside in the future, we'll think about sheep or goats. but that's not in the near future, I think. One of my as I'm learning more about how you can actually help the land and how important that kind of rotational grazing is actually for carbon sequestering and like building the soil, and how good and important that is to fight or help aid the climate crisis. One of my dreams is actually to have to in the next 10-15 years to kind of build a system with the community as well, where we can have a community herd with maybe one or two shepherds, and then we can start grazing all the pieces of land around that are no longer in use because people are old or moved away or for whatever reason. But I think it's good for everyone if those places are taken care of in some way again. And having animals graze on them is a very good way to do that. And so it kind of means that we need to start thinking about land again as more as a common property of the community instead of all privately owned separate plots that are just, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of that type of system. I won't name it specifically, but yeah, here I think here you can see that private property doesn't always work because of life. People move away, they get old, they don't do anything with the land anymore, and it's not good for the land to not be used anymore. So it's a project that I want to start in the future to help the community but also ourselves, because it's good if land is around us is taken care of, because that also prevents fire, because much of this is a fire hazard in the state it is. So it's good for us, it's good for everyone, but it means a mind shift when it comes to, oh, this is my land, you can't use it, type of mindset that people might have right now. But it means that we also have to learn better Portuguese and get involved in the community in that way. So future. Sorry. So, any more questions about the land, about how we're using it, how we're gonna use it, our plans in general? I'm wondering if you have any plans to do any type of teaching. So, I've probably mentioned this in a video before. I used to work in education. Well, I have once you feel ready, yeah, of course. This is not the time with a toddler and a baby on the way. So I have a degree in philosophy, in political philosophy, and then there's obviously no work in that. My first inclination was to go further into academia, but after some soul searching and seeing how academia is, especially philosophy, which is very male centric. Sorry. sometimes misogynistic type environment. I'm not really into that, so I decided to scrap academia and go. I worked in bars and restaurants for a while. I actually do love that kind of work. It gives me a rush to like work really hard for 2 3 hours, serve everyone. I used to work the coffee machine, so make many cappuccinos and espressos in a very short time. I love that type of work, and that's also something that I might start in the future. Is just do a bar in the weekend, serve some coffees and some beers, because we don't in our village we don't actually have a cafe anymore. So that's one of the things that I might like to do in the future. But then I kind of rolled um, into education, and the plan was to become a primary school teacher. But I have a very different approach to education than um, the school that's supposed to give you the degree that you're a good teacher. Because I believe much more in child-led learning, and much more focused on what's interesting to the child at the moment. I don't believe in books so much, and kind of uh, like repetition all the time, and it doesn't spark joy to me to teach in that way. And as a philosopher, I like to ask more questions and kind of encourage um, the um, the interest in learning that children have anyway. So I was working in a school that was actually providing that for children in Amsterdam. It was a new school, so I learned a lot as well, just about the building process of a new curriculum. Um, and in some sense, I loved it. That was also what kind of drew me into academia. Is I love explaining things to people, and I think I'm very good at explaining very complex things in a simple manner. So I'm good at explaining philosophy to children, and I was doing philosophy circles with the children as well, and I love that. But it's a very it takes a lot out of me, so it's a very emotionally heavy um, line of work that um, I think just to protect myself I shouldn't go into, because I get very emotionally involved to the point that it's just not healthy for me. Um, in the school that I worked in, just in Amsterdam, obviously you have a lot of problem cases, um, but it's very demanding. Doing workshop for adults, permaculture is the buzzword these days. I'm not so I I think that's what I'm doing with the YouTube right now. Is just um, my audience is obviously adults, um, and I try to show what this type of lifestyle actually means, and what's our idea behind this. And lots of people are interested in the subject anyway, so I try to show our way of doing this. But I don't ever want to do it in person, I think, because that would mean maybe having people over at our place, or going going to other places and explaining it there. And yeah, I think it's just not for me. I love talking about this type of thing online, because there's enough distance between me and the receiver, um, that I don't get too attached, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, so I'll continue making videos for the foreseeable future, and kind of uh, get my message across this way, because I've always been kind of looking for how can I actually how can I inspire people, and what's my medium in that way. So I did also start a blog at one point, but writing was also too just not my thing. So yeah, it's education is fun, but for me it's more looking into things that you can do it in a different way than actually having a group over. I think that can be very inspiring for some people, but from what I see, it's also just like those permaculture courses and things. It's also just for people kind of a fun week way, or like learn something new, but then not actually implement it in their life, or only in a small way. And yeah, I think it's too much work for too little reward. Oh, been talking for almost an hour. I can see. Let me check if there's any more comments on Patreon. No. Yes. Yeah, I think I kind of had an hour set aside for this. Good you had fun, Anna. um, See you soon. Good luck with getting the kids into bed. It's been a challenge with book. The chickens are free ranging, and I can see a chicken right now. They come close to the yurt. So anyway, I think I'll wrap it up. I'm gonna put this live stream on over on Patreon. Excuse me. And then I'll try to post the picture of our land, kind of that you can see the shape better. I'll try to post it with it. And yeah, unless anyone else has another question, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you for coming, Tana. Sorry, I'm not. I used to be very good with names, but no longer am. Yeah, thank you all for coming, and I'll see you next Sunday. Oh, good. Bye.